For exercise 5-24, this block can become somewhat difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of draw it as a block, and then I'm going to remove all the stuff that I can possibly remove. So let me just go ahead and start with the basic shape, drawing along my 30-degree angles. I know that this goes over 4. From here, this object goes up 3.5, and this is going to come in 0.5. On this side over here, again, it comes up 3.5, goes in 0.5, and then right here in the very center, this is going to come up 1.5, and then from there, it's going to connect to there, and it's going to connect to there. And now I can go ahead and get rid of that center line. Now, what I want to do to make my life a little bit easier on this one is I'm going to be working with most of this object for a lot of the time. So now I'm going to go ahead and copy all of my front edges, and I'm going to copy those along that 30-degree angle back 2.5. Now I can begin to draw the lines that are going to connect this thing and make it into a box. Now, rather than trimming out, once I get up into here a little bit more, I'm gonna kind of cheat in some respect, and that is I'm going to take the lines that should not be visible in this situation, which is basically this one, and I'm going to just change the color to blue. It's going to be a little bit hard for you to see as we get into here, but as this thing unfolds, you'll kind of see why I'm doing what I'm doing. So now I'm going to draw another line, and it's going to come in 0.5 from here, and it's going to go down 1, and then over 0.5, and then I'm just going to project that along the 30 degrees all the way across the top for this and this. Now what I can do is I can draw the groove on the back side as well as the groove that I have on the front side. It's going to be important to note where these things kind of meet up. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this piece right here out to its intersection point. And now I'll copy this line over to here. What that does is that gives me the entire groove that's cut out from this piece. And if I go through here and just simply trim out the lines that I don't need and then erase some of the other lines, what you can see is that fairly quickly I have the development for the groove on the far side of the object. The same thing is going to be true for this side of the groove, although it's going to be a little bit trickier because not everything is going to line up as neat. So I'm going to copy this from here to here, and you can see that that's not a whole lot of room for error. And now I'm going to copy this from here to here. So now what we've got to do is we've got to be able to look past what is actually in place and what is not in place. That goes to there, that being the bottom of the groove. This gets cut, this gets cut, this gets cut. I need my line to show the front of my groove here. I'll trim this and erase this section here. I can now trim out this middle piece. And what that gives me is that gives me my grooves all the way around. I can pretty much determine at this point that I don't need this and that I want to trim out this. I do, however, need a line that goes back 3.5 along my 30 degrees, 2.5, because I'm going to need the midpoint of this line very shortly. I'm going to switch my ISO plane to the front, and I'm going to go ahead and draw an ellipse using the ISO circle option, with the center being right here, having a diameter of 1.5. I will now move this thing up 1.5 and then move it to the left 1. Now this is the circle that I need to project back onto this surface. I know that the center of it is going to be the midpoint of this line. Because it's up 1.5 and the bottom of this groove is 1.5, I've got to do pretty much everything on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to project this quadrant back along that 30 degrees, just so that it touches right there. And then I'm going to project the very top of this back. Now, the main thing that I need to do is I need to copy this over half of the thickness, which is 1.25. So I can see here I've got my side and my top, and then my center should be right here. So now when I go to the ellipse, I'm going to do a center ellipse, picking here, here, and here. And what that's going to do is that's going to give me the basic overall size and geometry that I need for this ellipse. Now, that doesn't look quite right, so evidently I got the wrong line in here that I'm actually using as a reference. So let me go ahead and get rid of that. I want to make sure that all the lines that I'm using are the correct lines, the lines that I absolutely need to use. So go back to the ellipse, we'll grab this center, this point, center, this point, and you can see that it's still throwing my ellipse off in some respects. So what I need to do now is I need to take a look at the lines that I've actually got drawn and make sure that they're all in the correct location. The easiest way for me to do this is I'm going to project another line from here along that 30 degrees back to here. And then I'll do a new center ellipse using this, and this ellipse just does not want to work for me today. Okay, because my center is wrong. Instead of being 1.25 back, this center should actually be lined up with the center of this. So I'm going to copy this to the midpoint of that line that I've created. This is my line, and using that midpoint is not going to work, so forget I said use the midpoint. Instead, I want to copy it back 1.5. Okay, now that's going to give me a center point that I can work with. So now I'll go ellipse, center point ellipse, using here, here, and then here. And that looks much better. So again, it's real easy to get confused when you're trying to figure out which lines to use and which lines to not use. The main thing is if it doesn't look right, just go back and take a look at what you're doing. And there I happen to be using one wrong dimension, and it was throwing everything else off. So just be careful when you're going through and placing features like this, because it can get complex really quick. So here I've got the completed exercise 5-24. The only thing that you would need to do from this point is center it up, dimension, oblique your dimensions, and turn it in.